Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Coaches. I'm Holly Lotus, and I'm here today with Gina Gigi Garris, and she is another erotic blueprint coach. And today we're just here to learn about what she's doing with her coaching, what she has to offer, and who she is, and like all the great things that you're offering the world. So thanks for coming on, Gigi. Or
Yeah.
what would you like me to call you?
Yeah, either.
Okay, great.
Gigi works. That's totally fine. Yep,
Cool.
I go by both.
Okay, good. Okay, so first question is, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more and share about what you do?
Yeah. So hi. I love these. Thanks for having me on, Holly. I love conversations. So one of my favorite things is what I'm really passionate about is helping folks talk about sexuality the same way that they order a Starbucks coffee, which is with comfort and knowing for the most part, and no shame and ease. So when you think about when someone goes into a coffee shop and they're just like, I would like a venti vanilla latte, extra hot whipped cream. And today you can call me beautiful. Like it's just something that rattles off, right? And I find that in the work that I do, we don't often get to talk about sex, sexuality, or sexual health with as much ease and grace and confidence. So that's what I'm up to for the most part in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's exciting and so much needed. So one thing that I wanted to do at the beginning of this call, just to get everybody landed, is introduce pleasure first.
Yeah.
So Gigi and I are both erotic blueprint coaches, and in that training, we learn that like pleasure is so important. And so what we do is we start almost everything with pleasure first. Mm-hmm. So what that means is we're just gonna go through a little process and just sink into the call and start it with pleasure. So Gigi, would you like to lead us in that?
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. Great.
So if you're not driving while you're watching this and you want to join us, it's so great to have you also join in on this. So if you're not driving, close your eyes. And if you're driving, you can do this later. So close your eyes, and I want you to bring the tips of your fingers together and just to start to make little circles. So they're barely touching, like they're touching, but they're barely touching, and making these little circles on the tips of your fingers, like it's almost like a tingle. So you can go as fast or as slow as you want, and just take some nice breaths as you're letting your fingertips get acquainted with each other. And I'm hoping that most of you actually feels like this feels good. If you don't, that's totally perfect too. We're going to take this feeling now down to other parts of our body. So you're slowly touching your fingertips, and act if they're like your fingertips are either someone else's lips or even someone else's genitals. So what kind of love and attention and detail would you bring to the ends of your fingertips as you're just gently touching them? And then you're just going to gently spread that down through each hand. So you're going to drag each fingertip down each hand, maybe all the way to your elbow, just taking some turns on each side. Just feeling this delightful pleasure, yumminess. Great. And then come back to your fingertips, and I want you to press a little harder, almost like you're like a little kitty who's kneading you, kneading on their mama or kneading on your body. You're going to kind of push your fingertips together like they're kneading into each other. And see if you can like sink into the melting of your fingers as they come together with this kneading pressure. I'm breathing. And then see what you can do to create that same sensation just down your hand, down the other hand, and maybe to your elbow through your inner arm. See, just notice we're just playing here. We're just playing with different sensations onto our body. And switching hands and pressing or kneading the fingertips into the hands and the forearm. Great. And now bringing your fingertips together again, and I want you to use your nails. So use your nails on the pads of each of the fingertips. You're gonna have to take turns. You can't do nail to nail, or I can't. Maybe if you have longer nails, you can. And then just feel the difference. Notice the difference of the sensation. And this is just information. There's no like one that's better or another, one you might really like prefer. And then we're going to take your nails and then kind of pull them gently or hard down your fingers and down your inner arm to your elbow, and then switching sides. So you're kind of just doing this scratching, slow scratching feeling. And then bringing your fingertips together and just holding them. I'm imagining if you scratched a little bit harder than just touching the skin, you're feeling sensation now down your hands and your arms. And so just breathe with that sensation. And I just want you to imagine a moment thinking about your favorite touch that you just gave yourself, your favorite touch that you gave your hand. We had some gentle circles, we had some kneading, we had some scratching. What would it feel like to have that all over your body? And just breathing that in, noticing there's no good or bad or right or wrong. You might have actually cringed, like, no way, too tickly, right? It's all beautiful information. And you might have melted. I think I heard Holly just, right? It's just yummy. So the last few seconds, I want you just to do something that you know feels delicious for you. So maybe it's just putting your palms in your face in your palms. Maybe it's squeezing your hair and giving a little tug. Maybe it's just holding your hands on your heart to just take a deep breath in stillness. So just take the last few breaths to really come into a place of your very, very own pleasure, something that you know feels so good to you. And then let's take a final breath together. And we can open our eyes and greet each other.
Yummy, Gina. Thanks.
Yeah.
So my favorite was I did when you did the scratching. I did light scratching, like I call it tickle scratching.
Mm-hmm.
It's so nice. And then this spot on my arm.
Yeah, love it.
So body reveals. I've got like goosebumps and tingling in different parts of my body during that. And then at one point, I got distracted by my daughter and her friend making all kinds of noise in the other room.
Nice.
It's not heard on this, but I just want to speak to, like, sometimes we get distracted in the middle of the things that are pleasurable, and it's okay to just come right back to it. So.
Totally. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I noticed, so my arm is red where I scratched. I really dug in. And that was probably my most pleasurable was the very end when we were in stillness. I personally adore stillness. And so when we were in stillness, but my skin was still like alive with sensation, that I was just like, oh yeah, this is so good. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that stillness gave us a moment to like really feel all the sensations that just happened.
Totally great. Oh, thanks for letting us do that. I feel more grounded in my body. So one thing that I love about Pleasure First, or this practice, is that it just gets me back into this being, this body. So thank you for
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for leading it for us. And everybody who's watching, when you are having a moment where you're flustered or you need to get into focus quickly, show up, or you just need a letdown, anytime, just like stop and take a few breaths, touch a part of your body, like know that you're here and now, and let your body have a sinking in moment, whether it's just with breath or touch or whatever feels good to you in that moment. It's okay to stop and take a moment. So just that invitation. So Gina, take the out of sexual health.
Yeah.
What does this mean to you?
Yeah. That means we need to talk about it more. Like, we need to stop going, shh, shh, don't do that. Shh, we don't talk about that. Shh, that's not okay to say. Mm-hmm. It's really, I love to create a community where we actually get to ask the questions that people have. Yeah. And in my experience, when people ask questions, it's almost never really for the person who's asking. There's someone who's watching, or there's someone who really wants to ask the question, but maybe doesn't have the courage to do it. And so it gets us the opportunity to know that we're not alone, that we all have questions, that we all have curiosities. And I love to create opportunities for folks to just talk about the stuff that either is uncomfortable or we're super curious about, or we really want to know more information about, but we don't feel like we can talk about it. So that's what that means.
Perfect. So what are some of the things that are so shameful? I know that I used to experience, I had my own experience with STDs, so that's one for sure. Mm-hmm. It's like so embarrassing. There's such a stigma. What are some of the questions that people want to ask or are maybe too afraid to bring up? And we could just make it okay right now.
Yeah.
Ask it for them.
Yeah. Well, something I always say is everything is welcome and nothing is forbidden. Mm-hmm. I had a mentor tell me that many years back, and I was like, are you sure? Because I got a lot of stuff in here. Like, are you sure nothing's forbidden? And the space that was created for me to express, to ask, to process was so phenomenal. And I made a vow to really live my life like that, and to create that space for the people who I get blessed to work with. Everything is welcome. And doesn't mean we're going to go through with things. This is an interesting thing with desire. Desire is something that people often don't share. Desires or fantasies or wants in sexuality. We all have those, and it's beautiful. And to express them is so fantastic. But it doesn't mean that someone is obligated to do it, or you have to figure it out, right? I think that's something about fantasies and couples, that they're afraid to share with each other because they think the other person has to fulfill it, or things like that. So that'd be one thing. Like fantasies, desires, those are things that often people don't have the courage to share. I look at sexual health on kind of a whole spectrum of spirit, body, mind, heart, soul, kind of like a holistic view of sexual health. And so it encompasses not just genitals and genital health, but it's like the heart, the health of your heart and the health of your boundaries. Like, do you have good boundaries or sexual values Do you know what they are? And are you able to speak those like in the heat of the moment, or have conversations before you engage with making love with someone? And then spiritually, is what you're doing in alignment with who you are as a being? And that sometimes gets clunky because society and religion and parents and friends and judgment and beliefs from other people can compound into how we show up in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's beautiful. You just framed sexual health into some like way broader picture.
Yes.
Because sexual health that we learn, like our whole sex ed, and when we're kids, is like be afraid of STDs, and that's what sexual health means. Be afraid, don't do it, abstain, be scared, and that's all that sexual health is framed as. And I love that you just made it like this whole, like mind, body, spirit, heart, all encompassing picture in the definition. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and even sometimes people say, well, I never got sex ed. And I'm like, yes, you did. What you got was like, we don't talk about it. That is sex ed in and of itself, which is, this is a taboo thing or sin or whatever. It's not to be talked about. So, yeah, let's talk about it. I want to say something about talking about it because a lot of people,
Something strange.
Totally.
Let's see if it changed.
Is that better?
Yeah, it did a weird thing. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's great. Thanks for interrupting. Thanks for taking care of us in this recording.
No problem.
Just a hot tip. That's so great. Even during sex, if something goes funky and clunky, it's just be like, hold on.
Yeah, it's wait a minute. Something's weird.
Yeah. We don't have to endure massive amounts of scratchy noise because for some reason it's not professional to interrupt someone, like,
yeah. Or intimate.
Yeah. Yeah. So great. Just be real, people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great permission.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to give I had something awesome and it'll come back because it's gone now. Poof.
Well, we were talking about the big picture, turning it into the big picture in sexual health, and we didn't receive our sex ed.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's okay. We'll go on to it.
It'll come back.
So like, what are some of the struggles that your clients are experiencing when they come to you? Like, what are some of the things that you can support them with?
They came back. So I'm going to do that first.
Perfect.
In the age of like, let's see, there's something that many generations have been told, don't talk about sex. It's inappropriate. And in the age of TMI or too much information, the truth is that more trauma and drama and I call things emotional STDs, which is shame, trauma, and drama. So emotional STDs are things that hold us back from living in the fullness and wholeness of who we are as a sexual being. And so when it comes to talking or not talking versus not talking, especially like with children, what I find is we have this over-sexualized world, yet no one's talking about it. So sex isn't normal, right? So when it comes to TMI or the overshare, trauma and shame actually build on secrecy and the non-conversation. So I always share with people, like people like me who are so open to talking about sex and sexuality, people think that I'm doing damage to people's ears, or I'm going to traumatize people. But the truth is the secrecy, the reason that people don't talk, that actually builds more shame and trauma in people's nervous systems and their bodies. So I just want to share, if you're hearing this information and it's triggering you, or you're like, no, it's not appropriate to talk about this, especially on a podcast or whatever, like, that's actually building more stigma and shame around the subject, as opposed to just having a conversation. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, when those lines of communication become open,
yeah,
handle it in different
yeah.
ways.
And then you asked, what do people come to me for?
Yeah, like, what are some of the biggest struggles that they're dealing with?
Mm-hmm. I would say shame is at the core of everything I do. So I get a lot of people who have or are dealing with STIs or STDs, a lot of people who have body issues or body shame, and then a lot of people who are actually just afraid of sex just in general. And what I've found is at the core of all of those are the thing that I call emotional STDs, which is the shame, trauma, and drama around something. Like, I've actually never met one person who doesn't have some sort of experience that was harmful or intense around sex. Mm-hmm. Like, even if it's a virgin, it's like potty training, or being ridiculed when your boobies came out when you were in puberty, or someone laughing at you in the shower when you were in college, or we all have these experiences at one time or another that have not necessarily shaped who we are, but we have experiences that have been tender. And so I always say sex is a tender conversation, because we all have this stuff that's around it. Right? So I just like to clear out and help people clear out. So we can get to the truth, like the truth at the core of who they are, not who are they because a society or parents said they needed to be a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, isn't it true? Like, we all take on something that comes from somewhere else. And it's like, who does this actually belong to when you start to really look at it, right? Like, is this mine? Is this a belief that I have? Mm-hmm. Is this someone else's? Is it, like, where is this coming from, actually? What's real for me?
Yeah.
Beautiful that you can support that. What are some of the like, we talk about breaking down the layers and breaking down the emotions and getting to the core. I guess, what is some of the greatest tools that you've discovered to start to remove the layers?
Honestly, love and permission.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like part of my story is I've always been I haven't always fully loved my body. I'm a very curvaceous person. But for the most part, I have always just been okay with it. And the same with my sexuality. But what I've found is that I've been shamed for those. I've been shamed for being a person who's been comfortable in her own skin. I've been shamed for being a person who is comfortable in my own sexuality. And so it's really no different than shame and judgment from others is probably where people find the most freedom from me, because there's an acceptance. And that's because that's my journey. Right? I all I've ever wanted to do is belong. And then I morph and I contort sometimes to do things to fit into other people's molds of who they think I should be, and it just never works. So, so there's a long history around like trying to fit in and then that group of people go away, or trying to fit in and I get kicked out, or, and so when I can be the most me that I am and not have the shame around it, that's the healthiest I've ever been. And so the embodiment that I present, I feel like that is when people come to me, they usually say, hey, I want what you have. I want to be able to talk about sex freely.
Mm-hmm.
Or I feel like you move your body in a way that you feel like you inhabit it, and I don't feel like I do that. Can you help me with that? So love and permission to just know that you're just beautiful and delicious exactly as you are is probably the number one tool that I use in my coaching.
Yeah, and what a beautiful presence that you offer. Like, it's just a soft, gentle space to be able to explore these touchy subjects. So
Thank you.
that's what I'm noticing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So from that, is there like, what are the biggest takeaways that people have in your work together? What are the greatest things that like some of your clients have experienced?
Well, you know, one thing I also work, of course, with the erotic blueprints. That's how we've connected.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the work with the erotic blueprints is the foundation of everything that I do. And the reason that I use it and it's so transformational is that really helps for me. The way that I use the blueprints is it all leads back into, like, all my paths lead back, like help lead you back into yourself. But like, let's say if someone has herpes, like I can help people have hot sex with herpes. Where
Mm-hmm.
so many people think that their life is over, or their sex life or their dating life, they'll never find love. You know, all the stories and the stigma and the icky, yucky stuff that is not true. Just clearing some of that out and then showing people there's so many ways to connect. There's so many ways to make love, even if you're having some sort of a something. There's a gajillion ways to be intimate. So takeaways are probably just freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, wow, I never knew life would feel this good by just standing as the truth of who I am. Or I really was able to have that hard conversation with my mom, who I never thought she would understand me all these years. And well, she doesn't understand me, and I'm okay with that. Right? So there's also an ownership of letting go of what other people think about me.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's okay. I always say, I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. Right? Just like, Holly, you're not for everyone, and that's okay. And there's so many fucking people. It's amazing. We don't have to
Yes.
be for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So being able to just let go of like the way that we think it's supposed to be, or the response that we expect from someone. That is so freeing, actually.
Yeah, I always say expectations are a direct ticket to hell, or the leading cause of disappointment.
Shitsville.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's what we're taught to do, right? We're raised. So I had one of my guides that I work with, like, I would be struggling and she would just say, honey, it's just conditioning. You know, it's conditioning. Be sweet, be gentle as you learn to let it go. You know, it's conditioning. If don't beat yourself up. I think that I see a lot of that. It's not just judgment from others, it's self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't, you know, people are going to judge me. I have too much shoulder showing. You know, believe me, I've got it for years. But guess what? I love my shoulders to show. They're so beautiful. I love this curve of my shoulder. And I don't care what people think about me for the most part, right? It's a practice.
Right, and it is that conditioning, because like, so I am the worst at judging myself. We are so mean to ourselves, but
Tell
like,
me.
when does that start? It starts like when we're kids. Like, I
Mhm.
used to have a spaghetti strap shirt, and I went to school, and you can't wear that. That's inappropriate, and so I covered it up. And then for my whole life, it's like, oh, am I inappropriate? I
Right.
am. I'm trashy. I'm whatever the thing was that we learned when we were little becomes like the norm, and then we are so much harder on ourselves than anybody else is thinking, and they don't even think of what we were told when we were 2 or 5. So but we just carry it with us from that like social conditioning, and then judge ourselves so harshly for so long.
And also, even if it wasn't done to us, like if you had seen,
Mm-hmm.
a friend have that done from her mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a sister, or you watched a movie. I mean, we're so conditioned by the movies that we watch. It's a fascinating, fascinating game that we play around how we're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
how we're supposed to act, what we're supposed to say. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I see my daughter dealing with some things like where I've taught her, she's always been curious. So I've been open with her, and I've taught her so much about her body and sexuality, and just made it this open topic only because she was curious. You can only introduce it to a kid when they're ready to hear it. You can only introduce it to anybody when they're really ready to hear it.
True.
But like the way that she is with her body, the way that she is so open with things, um, I can see that it like makes some of her friends really curious, and it scares the shit out of others. And then some parents are like, what the
Oh,
fuck? Just what came out of my kid's mouth because your kid says this word vagina? Like she knows the parts of a body, right? And
right, right.
even that is shameful to some
Totally.
people. So
And
um,
it's confusing.
yeah, it's really
Like,
interesting.
it's no wonder that we're confused as adults
Mm-hmm.
because we were confused as children,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's no right or wrong way. I think that's the thing that I end up coming back to. Like, our parents weren't wrong, society's not wrong, religion's not wrong, nothing's wrong,
Right.
nothing's right. It's just how do you want to live? Like, how do you want to choose to live? Because if you're in a lot of suffering because you want something that's outside, you're in here, which is your little comfort zone, but everything you want is on the outside, but that's scary, like, those are the things that we got to figure out. Well, okay, like, if this is your new norm and you want your new norm to be here, then let's find the pathways that are of least resistance and with ease and grace to give yourself permission, right? Because permission really only comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it feels like, oh, well, Gigi gave me permission, I'm going to go do this, and it's really not me giving permission, right? That's kind of ego and arrogant. I always like to think that it's me, but it's not me, because in the long run the individual has to really give themselves permission. So it's a
Well, the
journey.
permission that we get from our mentors or our support system is actually like the step that we need to offer ourselves that permission. Like, oh, it's okay. Like I just had this experience with Jaya, where I was like struggling with one thing, not wanting to be really in business, right? And she's like, full permission.
Yeah.
If that's not what's important, and it's like a business program that we were in. If that's not what's important, you don't have, like, why don't you just embrace what you're really wanting? Like, duh. But if I didn't hear, sometimes we need to hear it from that, and that's a part of conditioning too, is that we need something outside of ourselves
Yeah.
to offer, like, that we can have it. But what if we just took that word permission and offered it for ourselves, right?
And I think that's the fear. I think there's like a twangle between like the judgment that it's not okay, like, I'm gonna do this, and why am I doing, like, it just gets it. I think we just fucking think too much. You know, it's like, what's going to happen? And, you know, it's a tender subject, and it's really tender. And there's a lot of pain in just the topic of sex. It's like God, really, right? Like 3 letter words that hold a lot of.
It's a lot of stigma, a lot of.
Yeah. So just like I always say, tenderness and gentleness when we come to it, there's no right and there's no wrong. And really only you know what's going to be the best for you. And that's why we have so many beautiful guides to help figure out what is best. And then we're fluid, right? Like we're fluid right now. I'm playing with potential gender fluidity. I was so solid on who I was as a person and as a cisgendered woman, and that's shifting for me now because I'm willing to allow myself to be curious around, well, I don't know, I like to play with my energetic cock a lot. So what does that mean, right? Is it okay to talk like that on this?
Of course. Yes.
Cute.
My space is an open space for whatever the things are.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's really no end point. It's just like that starting point of like asking the questions. What does this mean to me? You know, where, like you're saying, you're now exploring what gender means to you and what that means to you and your body. And that's how we get started with any kind of transformation, any kind of change, is just with these questions of like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Is this working for me? Is this and I'll tell you, like, this is what's important for me. I love like the conversation with coaches, because what I want to do here is bring to awareness, like, sometimes we're in a way of being and we just go through the motions of it. And like we're just doing, and then we don't realize that it's not working. And so one day we have this like, wait a minute, what just happened there? And then there's a question, right? Like, why did that happen? What is this that happened? Why am I so sad about what happened? Or whatever the question is. And then that starts this thing. And so opening up the spaces with coaches, like, just to bring to awareness, like, that things happen. And sometimes when those things happen, we're needing like the support, because what do we do with it? when our world is shaken and we learn this new thing, like I actually can't imagine, because I'm not exploring the gender thing for myself right now, what it would be like to think like, am I a they, them? You know, and that would be a whole different body and energetic like shift to look at. So I don't know how I got on that tangent, but it's exciting to.
Oh wait, I can't hear you. Something happened. I still can't hear you. Oh no. Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm going to keep the screen off for a second.
Well, that feels weird. Do you want me to turn my screen off too?
If you want. I love your picture.
I'm going to go back on. We don't have to be the same, do we?
No. I was just supporting the internet connection to see if that
helps. I love what you're saying, and I think that sometimes we do get stuck. Like we get stuck in this is how it is. I find that with sex a lot. It's like some people come and they're like, sex is just the same. We do the same thing. It's the same warm up. It's the same this, and I want it to be a little hotter, or I want something different.
Yeah, I have to do this position or I won't get to have my orgasm.
Right, right. And so the fluidity and being willing to try new things. And what I love about, I guess what I love about the blueprints is it gives us permission to just try things on. And what I would love for people to understand when it comes to sex and sexuality, when you experiment, it means nothing except that you're being curious and experimenting.
Yeah.
You know, like if I decide to go, I don't know, have a threesome with women, it doesn't mean that I'm a lesbian or I don't like, you know, something different. And I think sometimes that happens with sex when exploration comes, that we tend to forget that it's just exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which,
Well, that exploration hasn't been okay. It's kind of just like, this is the thing that I learned, and this is the thing I'm supposed to do.
right. And that's your whole thing, right? Shameless explorations. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
just
that.
explore things shamelessly
Yes.
and like be curious and allow it for yourself,
Yes.
like, and no matter what the thing, whether it's sex or where I want to live or the way I want to make my
Yes.
money,
Yes.
the way I want to dress my body, do I want to call myself, am I being a different gender today? Am I how am I parenting? That so much shame is put onto parenting too. So it's just like explore your life shamelessly and see what's real for you. That's my whole thing. It was like it's so important, and we get stuck in these ruts. That's what I call them, like ruts. Like, how do I come out of this thing where I'm just on this hamster wheel of everything the same all the time, and realize like, wow, I'm not actually living my life. I'm living maybe my mom's life.
Right.
I'm
Some, mm-hmm.
living my grandpa's life. I noticed so many things that I was doing in my life, with my body, hiding it, being shamed about it, or the way that I was spending, that came from watching people, not even talks, and this is how you're supposed to do it, being taught that, but just watching,
Yep.
as I was growing up, and just seeing things, and then it just ingrained in my system, whether I wanted it to or not.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love that you brought it into like full spectrum. Like, how are you living? How are you parenting? How are you, financially? That to me, it's the holistic view, right? So sexual health to me is the same thing. It's
Yeah.
the spirit, body, mind, heart, soul lens, looking through all the lenses around the truth of who you are as you become more embodied as a sexual or erotic being.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it, is just that whole picture view of, everything is a big picture, right?
Yeah.
Sex. Like, what does sex mean to you?
Totally. And are you having that conversation before you have it with someone?
Mm-hmm.
Because what it means to you and what it means to you may mean very different things. And if you don't have that conversation around it, then wowza, can some hearts get broken, Like, yeah, we got to talk about it. Come play with me. I would say, come play with come play with Gina, come play with Gigi.
Yes, how do people come play with Gigi?
Yeah, so I have a group on Facebook, which is kind of where I'm most active. It's kind of small right now. We're just building. It's really great. I'm loving it. So you can find me just regular on Facebook, which I'll put my thing below, and then also my group, which is take the out of sexual health. Sexual health and me is what I call it. Sexual health and me, and the core of that is we talk a lot about shame, because that seems to be a biggie as to what holds us back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you just want them to find you on your Facebook group? That's the best way?
Yeah, you can also go to blisscoach.com, BLISS coach, COACH.com, or you can just find me on Facebook. I'll put all the links underneath the recording, the replay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And I'll be here. So you stalk me if you would like to.
So is there anything else that you want to share? Anything else you want to leave us with? An offering? Just closing, whatever? Is there,
Yeah.
to feel happy?
Well, yeah. So I will say it's May 14th. And in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing some fun mini series in my groups. So on shame and things like that. So if you're interested, if you felt, oh my God, they're awesome. I love Gigi. Come find me there, and then you're going to get some extra just free stuff from me. So find me there. The other thing I want to leave you with 2 questions, which is, what are you longing for? Like, what are you really longing for in your life? And what's possible if you didn't care what everyone thought about you? What's really possible in your life? And if you want to explore those with me, then PM me. We can hop on a call. But those 2 questions really are important. What are you longing for? And what would your life look like if you just didn't give a shit about what everyone thought? And it doesn't mean that you're an uncaring, unkind person at all. Like you're still a beautiful, perfect person, but what if you let go of any of the care around what other people thought of you? What would be different? So those are my final thoughts.
Thanks, Gigi. I love those exploratory questions, like those invitations to like,
Yeah. Oh, and you can ask questions on this thread. So you can just tag me and Holly, right? And so we will have a live conversation continuing to go here also. So it's supportive in this group. Like you're so generous to have us come on every week. So know that you can ask your questions here also. And then you're more than welcome to find me, personal message me, or go to find me in my Sexual Health and Me group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gigi.
Thank you.
Yeah, so fun having you on, and I love what you're doing. I love the way that you play and explore, like, and just have this open, loving dialogue with people that it's okay. Like, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that your struggle is, whatever, let's play. Like,
let's
play with that and see what's on the other side. So thank you so much for sharing yourself with us.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you soon. We'll see you again.